Hello, welcome, and Merry Christmas. I am filming this a week before Christmas to the day, and I'm hoping to have this video drop early on Christmas Eve. So this way you could spend all your time with your family, and if you have a little bit of downtime, you can watch this video. What is this video? Well, I've been told to make videos about scopes that I like and different lists and whatnot. So I figured what better way to end the 2023 year, which has been so far one of my most successful years yet, thanks all in part to all of you at home. So thank you very much for all of your love and support. But I figured what better way to end this year than to talk about some of the scopes that really left an impact this year. I'm going to try to pick one from each category: red dot, magnifier, prism, LPVO, MPVO, HPVO, and try to keep two different sort of budgets. Lower budget, probably like as close to under $1,000 as possible, and unlimited budget, well over $1,000. The rules are simple. I'm only going to talk about scopes that I reviewed completely this year, not scopes that necessarily came out this year. In fact, a lot of the scopes that we're going to be looking at are old, but they're still really, really good. And if you're in the market for one of them, it's something that I would recommend and suggest. Now, everything that I am going to talk about, I have already previously reviewed. I do not have everything that I'm going to talk about in hand to actually show you, but I am going to overlay some video to give you a rundown of what that optic is like to actually use and how well it performs. Don't mind me for looking down because I have a cheat sheet. I have a list of all the things I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to try to keep this in some sort of uniformed fashion. So the first thing we're going to talk about is budget pistol red dots. And for this, I have to pull out my budget pistol red dot. This is the Primary Arms Micro SLX 21mm. Ever since I got this within the last year for review, it has been on one of my two CCWs. Currently, it is on a 365 XL, and I have to say, this thing has never let me down. I've carried it almost every single day since I've gotten it. It's actually still with the original battery. The brightness on it still seems very, very bright, maybe a minimal loss at the very maximum brightness setting, but it has been nothing short of fantastic. This is a $150-ish red dot. It's withstood all of the abuse I've put it through. Granted, it's mostly just CCW abuse. I haven't barricaded this thing to strip a dead round yet, but I do plan on putting this through a little bit of a torture test in the near future when I have access to a range that'll allow me to do more elaborate stuff, shall I say. For the price, it has been nothing short of perfect. It looks good, it functions good, it's got auto off. I'm in no worries of having this be auto on, auto off. It's a CCW, goes off after I think 12 hours. I wake up in the morning, I open my safe, I pull it out, I turn on the dot, it's good to go, I put it away, and that's it. At the end of the night, I take it out, I look at it, it's on, I put it away. It's been great. It's held zero through this gun and my Hellcat OSP. Thousands of rounds through it at this point, and it's been absolutely rock solid. For the $150-ish that you can buy these for, if you're in the market for something inexpensive, very small, and very practical, it's this. What happens if you're looking for a full-size red dot or something of a higher price point? I've reviewed quite a few so far this year, but there's really one that comes to mind that I have a full review out on, and that is the Holo EPS. The EPS is a great little enclosed pistol sight. Oddly enough, that's what the acronym EPS stands for. They've been fantastic. I have two of these. This is the circle dot in red with the solar charging, which was sent to me by the guys over at arftac.com. If you're looking for anything for your AR or some sights, arftac.com, check them out. Let them know I sent you. Use code CDOES to get 10% off on any optics that they have. It might work for mounts as well. I'm not too sure. But either which way, let them know I sent you. They're great dudes over there. And let them know you have a dog. They'll send you doggy treats. The Holo EPS. You can get this as seen here with the circle dot with the solar charging for like low to mid 400s depending on your setup, depending on where you're getting it, if it's on sale or not. However, if you want the stripped down version that doesn't have solar charging or shake awake, those can be had for like the low 300s, and they've been really solid for me. This is still dirty from me taking it off of my M&P competitor a couple weeks ago to test out another optic, and it's never given me an issue. It works exactly as intended, and it's been fairly robust. A lot of people run EPSs or Holo products in general, and usually you don't have a problem. If you do have a problem, their warranty is known to be a little bit on the lackluster side. Typically, they're a little bit slow to respond. It's not like Vortex or Loophole, where it's like Yeah, this broke. Okay, here's a new one in like a week. It's a couple of weeks turnaround time. Regardless of that fact, they're well made. They function as intended. This thing's got a couple thousand rounds through it, as does my green 6 MOA version, and they just flat out work. For the price, for the footprint that these come on, they're a really stellar option. Now, I did say I'm going to talk about optics that I fully reviewed this year, and that's why it's the EPS. If we were talking about optics that I didn't finish reviewing yet, it might be the Steiner MPS, but more on this extremely soon. From there, we're going to talk about magnifiers, and unfortunately, this is all I got to show for you guys, at least in person. I'll overlay some video momentarily, but my choice for this year is actually only one real magnifier, at least, again, for the time being. It's not going to be a Holosun, Primary Arms, or EOTech product. It's actually going to be a Trijicon product. The Trijicon 3X magnifier you could find for around the $400 price point, if not a little bit cheaper, and I gotta say, it was really great when I had it. Given the size, the weight, the mount, the price, the fact it's made in the Philippines, and the overall performance of it, despite the fact it had a little bit of fisheye, it is still one of my favorite magnifiers to date. It felt extremely good in hand, looked really good to use, albeit with a tiny touch of fisheye, but I would actually defend it in the sense that if you're going to be using it magnified, you're probably going to be in a fairly stable position, and a little bit of fisheyeing isn't going to be the end of the world. Its size, weight, performance, construction, fit, feel, finish all come to this beautiful blend of just a wonderful performing optic. I have recommended them to a few people, and they have all been extremely satisfied with their purchase. Now, there are some EOTech products that I have reviewed, some that I haven't finished reviewing yet, and I will say that the EOTechs might have a little bit better overall image quality, but they're also a lot more expensive than the Trijicon in most cases, and then at that point, it becomes a little bit more of a wash. From there, we're going to talk about prisms, and I did review a fairly expensive prism. It was a TA33 from Trijicon, and if you haven't seen that review, check it out. It was not very good in my findings. Some people love them. Delta 34, the individual that sent it over to me, loves it. I'm not the biggest fan of it for a couple of reasons, namely with the tracking test and how Trijicon handled it. It was not very good. And you might be saying, but you just recommended a Trijicon product. I did. And I really still would recommend it. I would buy one myself. But for whatever reason, the TA33 was just a absolute disaster shit show. However, I did review a more budget-friendly option, and that is the Primary Arms SLX 3X. Now, yes, there are a lot of other prisms that I have looked at recently, but the 3X is probably the sweet spot for me. It's the most I'd be willing to go and not run an offset red dot. It still offers a very small and lightweight package with a really good field of view. Just like all the other Primary Arms SLX micro prisms, this thing performs extremely well and has been doing so on a plethora of different rifles. These things can be found in the low 300s to high 200s depending on when and where you're buying it from, and offer a really good sense of just usability when you get behind this thing and actually use it. Despite how much I like and recommend this thing, there is another option for all of you out there. And again, I'm breaking my own rules set forth by me just a few moments ago, because I guess rules were meant to be broken, right? The only product that so far I have reviewed, had, and then sold, and then bought back is this, the Primary Arms GLX 2X. This is one of my favorite optics of all time, especially in the prism section. This is my favorite prism of all time. I'll just leave it at that. I spent my own hard-earned money on this because I love this thing so much, even though I have nothing to put it on. And the reason being, this is, for me, the best culmination of a prism that you can find for a particular price point, namely under $500. Probably even more so than that. These are unfortunately made in China, but this is the prism that I hold every other prism to. It might only be a 2X, but rest assured, you probably don't need much more than that. So, before I get into the LPVO segment, you might be going, see, you did pistol red dots, but you haven't done like rifle red dots or holographic sights. You didn't do anything this year? I did. None of them really struck a chord with me, none that I'd ultimately super recommend. Some of them are good, some of them are okay, but ultimately I wasn't really felt like wow with any of them. To break another rule, I'm not going to say it's the best, but to showcase something that you've probably already seen on my channel, most namely in the West Point match, two-gun match that I recently did. EOTech EXPS 3-0. It's fucking wonderful. I shouldn't be cursing, I know, but I really don't care. This is wonderful. And you will be seeing a full review on this very soon, rest assured. From there, we're going to check out LPVOs, and surprising to no one, I have neither of them in hand. One of them is on very long-term leave to a good friend of mine, and that's going to be our budget option of the time being, or at least of the year. In fact, probably of the last couple of years. It is, of course, going to be the Primary Arms SLX Nova. This second focal plane 1-6 packs a absolute wallop of a punch. It offers so much capacity as far as the fit, finish, qualitative feel, glass performance, even though the off-center image quality starts to fall apart rather quickly and is something that I'm not the biggest fan of, but most other people don't really give a shit about. The illumination brightness is actually too bright. The reticle is very usable and easy to pick up, so much so that you don't even need the illumination to be on to actually use it effectively and efficiently. However, for the sub-$300 price point LPVO, it is untouchable. I would pick the PST Gen 2 Viper, which I did technically revisit this year, so I could have thrown it in this sort of segment. But for the price, you cannot beat the Nova. It's fairly small, it's fairly lightweight, and just the way it performs in every single way, shape, and form, it has to be the budget champ LPVO of almost any price point. I would still personally pick the PST Gen 2, given the fact that it's even heavier, older, the reticle sort of sucks, the illumination is more than bright enough for me, and it does do some things better, most notably why I'd pick it, which is the off-center sharpness to the image, but the Nova is the winner in every other way, shape, and form. So there's that. What LPVO did I pick this year to be my best overall LPVO in the non-sort of budgeted price point? It's another Trijicon product. It is, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, the TR25 1-6 and second focal plane. C, didn't you just review the PLX-C 1-8 from Primary Arms? I did just recently do it, but it's just over a year old. It was filmed in 2022, so I can't choose that. Honestly, between the PLX-C and the TR25, which would I choose? Because I know a million of you are asking, even though there's only like 200 of you watching this video. If you're looking for a first focal plane, lightweight 1-8, the PLX-C is for you. If you're looking for a second focal plane, very robust, very simple LPVO, the TR25 is my choice. It feels like it's made out of super extravagant materials, and mostly because of that forged housing in the rear. It features tritium, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but for the style of optic that it is, it works extremely well. You have a ton of different reticle options, which I'm a big fan of. It's a second focal plane 1-6, which many of you would look at and go, it doesn't have enough going for it. Well, there's plenty of other options with enough other features that might steer you in that direction. For me, I've become a huge buff for a Battle Zero, and my preferred Battle Zero on most of my 5.56 rifles is going to be a 5200. Works extremely well. Hold center mass and you're good to go. And running a Battle Zero, you don't need a fancy reticle with a BDC. You just need a duplex or even just a dot and just do a good zero and hold and you're fine. Thank you to my Patreon supporter Carlo for really instilling that in me and driving home in his multiple conversations about why he does it like this and why a lot of people really should consider it as opposed to running a BDC. And he's 100,000% right. It works extremely well. And I'm actually going to talk about it more in my next MPVO section. But to complete with TR25, amazing glass, amazing view through it, great field of view, great build quality, around $1,000, but they're made in Japan, tritium based. They're just so freaking nice to use. It's very reminiscent of a Razer HD Gen 2 1-6E, but even lighter than that and simpler than that. It's really as close to a point and shoot LPVO in the 1-6 category that you can get. It's an optic I've tried to get Hop on board with, but the 18 to 19 ounces that it weighs is just a little bit too heavy for his effeminate arms. Shots fired with that one, but Hop, if you are offended, I sincerely apologize. But you haven't worn the hat that I've given you, so there's that. Logically, in the order of LPVO, it goes MPVO. MPVO is that 2 to 4 minimum, and that 10 to 16, 18x maximum. And for this, well, there's only one scope in the budget section that I can talk about literally until the end of days. That is the Athlon Helios BTR Gen 2 2 to 12. This, ladies and gentlemen, is in contention for my scope of the year. I wanted to buy this a long time ago, and I regret not buying it sooner, because this has been one of my favorite scopes, period, of the last few years. I've only been doing this channel for the last 6 years, and there's 5 or 6 magnified optics that really strike home with me. This is one of them. Athlon is the only company so far to get everything that I want, that I foresee being 95% of what people need out there's optic of choice. And Athlon hit it out of the park. Not only do all the controls work extremely well, the scope itself is built fairly well. It's made in China, but it's priced accordingly. You can find these things for under $500 recently, and that is just a silly, silly price point. Not only are the external controls on this thing really, really impressive to use, but optically it's wonderful from 2 to 10. From 10 to 12, it gets a little bit dark, chromatic aberration starts creeping a little bit, but it's still a fairly sharp and usable image, especially if you're in a bright, sunny environment with a good, strong position. If not, you back down the magnification a little bit and take wonderful use of the first focal plane reticle in this, which is the best reticle for this magnification range that I have yet again come across. You have that one and white dot in the middle, which some people complain is too big, but I think that they're just bench shooters that want to shoot little tiny groups, and they're not trying to shoot off a barricade or anything like that, where you might not necessarily need a small dot that's really hard to find. You need a usable and practical size dot, which how many guns are shooting tighter than one MOA groups that you're going to be shooting from various positions and beating the ever-loving crap out of it, and you're not willing to spend, Night Force money on, something like this for the mid-400s really is going to just be more than sufficient and adequate. I have no problems using this even at extended distances. I've made shots on small plates at 600 yards, which is on a video that if you're not on my subscribe or Patreon, you're not going to see, because I got to have something for, my true paid supporters. There's nothing for the price that beats this. There's some that come close. The Swamp Fox products are actually very good, but this is the cream of the crop. Anything under $500, you can't touch this thing. Unfortunately, that's the last physical scope I'm going to have in hand to talk about. Next up is going to be the non-budgeted MPVO, and if you're fans of my channel, you already probably guessed this. It's of course going to be the Night Force Attacker 4-16x42. This thing is one of the best experiences I've had with a scope to date. The controls, the fit, the finish, the usability, the practicality, it is a wonderful, wonderful thing to get behind. If you have the opportunity to get behind one of these, namely the Attacker, namely the 4-16, please do so. Oh, namely in first focal plane. It's got to be an F1. The F2s, I'm sure, work fine. I'm sure they might even have better glass qualities because they're second focal plane. But you want to buy an SPR scope in first focal plane, if you can. If not, yeah, there's other options out there. But the Attacker 4-16 F1 is just perfect. Very similar with the Athlon. It does everything exceedingly well. I love the controls on it. It's beautiful. They're American made. They're priced a little bit on the high side, $2,500. Yeah, you can find them used for around $2,000, and there are some websites that if you are a first responder, LEO, military, you can get them for closer to the used price than you can the new price, which is really nice. But if you're looking for a scope that you can trust with your life and just probably throw out of a helicopter and it would still be fine, the Night Force Attacker 4-16 is my optic of choice in that magnification range. The last category of this video is going to be, of course, the high-powered variable optic. And again, low budget, unlimited budget, basically. For this year, actually, this is a scope that came out this year, and it is the Bushnell Match Pro ED 5-30x56. There are very few scopes that really wow me, especially in the lower price points. This one comes in around $600, so it's a little bit more than some people would consider low budget. I get that. But if you want to buy something that has all the boxes ticked and just works extremely well, the Bushnell Match Pro ED is something that you should really strongly consider. I've reviewed several 4.5 to 30s and some 5 to 30 scopes recently, and the Match Pro ED basically trumps all of them. Glass-wise, controls-wise, function, finish-wise, it is really, really impressive. If Bushnell had made this in Japan and had it be twice the price, or even 2.5 times the price, it would actually probably also be the higher budget scope that I would recommend. It's really, really painfully impressive. And if you're in the market for something like that, without shadow or question of doubt, go for it. If you don't like it, I would almost say I'd buy it from you. I want one so bad. But there are many other things I need to spend my money on, most notably stuff that I haven't reviewed yet. And drum roll, please. The non-budgeted HPVO of the year is the Gen 3 Razor HD 6-36. Despite the fact that Vortex saw it fit to increase the price on all of their Razor scopes, whether it's the new Gen 3s or the older style Gen 2s, it's still something that needs to be appreciated. Despite the fact it's got a 6x minimum magnification, it is so large and so wide that it feels like a 4.5 to 5 at most. It is beautiful. The image always seems to be perfect, and it's so nicely finished, especially in that wonderful anodizing. Now, some of you might be saying, see, we might agree with you, but they did have problems with the turrets. Both the elevation and the windage caused problems in the earlier ones that were being produced, and you are absolutely correct. There were a lot of problems with people, like turrets were almost falling off for people. Vortex seems to have fixed that with their newer rendition. And despite the fact that they're like $3,000 when they should cost like $2,000, but you could find them for like mid $2,000, they're still something that you really need to appreciate. They're a wonderful scope. I really enjoyed my time behind it. Is it the best scope I've gotten behind this year? No. I'm going to save that for my scope of the year, which again, I have a couple of really high performing scopes in that sort of category, but we'll touch on that hopefully around New Year's. But for right now, as far as a non-budget HPVO that I've reviewed this year, the Gen 3 Razor HD is going to be the one I have to pick. Primarily because I haven't really picked many others, and namely because I haven't really reviewed many others this year, and the other ones just had a major flaw. The Gen 3 seemed to have no real major flaw. And there you have it, folks. My best of 2023 video just in time for your Christmas. Thank you all very much for watching. Have a very Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays, and a very Happy New Year. As always, see you again next time. And a huge thank you to my Patreon providers and my Subscribe subscribers. Without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to support my channel but don't want to join either of those, I completely understand. But you could still help by using my affiliate links in the description below, and or like, share, and subscribe as always. Again, thank you very much.